What up? My name is Kevin Perger, and welcome to another edition in Defunctland. For background/context on this series, please visit thepurge.com with the link below. Today, we will be attempting to resurrect Disney's closed nightclubs on Pleasure Island. This was suggested by both Kyle Mace and 1UP Gamer, so thank you two and everyone else who has been commenting. Disney's Pleasure Island nightclubs were a series of dance clubs found in Walt Disney World's shopping district. This district, which requires no admissions fee, originally opened on March 22, 1975, under the name the Lake Buena Vista Shopping Village. 2 years later, the name would be changed to Walt Disney World Village. The area was a simple shopping mall until 1984, when Mikey took over as CEO of Walt Disney. Eisner wanted to keep visitors on Disney property throughout their entire trip, and he began to notice that at different parts of the day, they would travel off-property for food and shopping. Eisner decided to revitalize the Walt Disney World Village with the addition of adult nightclubs. This was a very mature experience for a kid-friendly resort, but if you haven't noticed, this is a bit of a pattern with Eisner's projects. Disney announced on July 21, 1986 that nightclubs would be added to the Walt Disney World Village. Construction began shortly after, and on May 1, 1989, the Pleasure Island nightclubs opened to the public. This is also the same day that Disney MGM Studios opened, so Eisner had a busy day. However, Eisner is not the star of the story, as this was not one of Mikey's obsessive projects. The real stars are actually the small team of new Imagineers that created the island and its mythos. The new Imagineers, who specialized in live performances, had just finished work on the Epcot Street Actors when they were approached by Disney. Disney wanted to know if any of their upcoming projects would benefit from live actors, so they asked the team about 3 ideas in the works: the then unnamed Typhoon Lagoon, Disney MGM Studios, then just called Disney Studios Florida, and the renovation of the Walt Disney World Village. They were teamed up with architects and producers, and the group started work on Disney MGM and the Walt Disney World Village. At some point in the development of the Walt Disney World Village, Granville Island in Vancouver was brought up as a concept for a possible addition to the shopping center. Granville Island was a fishing area turned into a tourist hotspot. This was the inspiration for Pleasure Island. The Imagineers found a peninsula adjacent to the shopping village and began planning their fictional fishing island. The story they concocted was that the land was originally owned by Meriwether Adam Pleasure, an 1800s ocean adventurer and founder of Pleasure's Canvas and Sailmaking Incorporated. His business transformed Pleasure Island into a hub for adventurers. These adventurers would tell stories of exploration, which made Meriwether yearn for the sea once more. He set sail for adventure and left Pleasure Island, and was soon lost at sea. His sons left the business and abandoned the island. Pleasure Island went into ruin until brave Imagineers took it over and transformed it into a lively spot for world travelers once again. All of the clubs and restaurants on the island were themed after a property owned by the fictional Meriwether, and have some story behind them. Some of the original business ideas that the Imagineers had were an Italian restaurant modeled after Tony's from Lady and the Tramp, an underground bar for Disney villains, and a magical TGI Fridays. None of these ideas would come to fruition, but many others would, and on May 1st, 6 nightclubs opened with Pleasure Island: the Neon Armadillo, the XZFR Rock and Roller Dome, Mannequin's Dance Palace, Videopolis East, Comedy Warehouse, and the Adventurers Club. Neon Armadillo, or the Neon Armadillo Music Saloon, was a country music club with live bands. The club was open to all ages, with 17 and under admitted only with an adult. The club was decked out with wooden tables and a brass chandelier in the shape of a spur. The Neon Armadillo served food at the bar for a limited run, and it also hosted an ABC television special entitled The Best of Country 92, Countdown at the Neon Armadillo. The plaques describing the legend of the Neon Armadillo said, quote, "Constructed to house the vast array of exotic desert plants collected by the island's founder, a globetrotter and amateur cactogogist, Meriwether Pleasure regarded the greenhouse as his personal Eden. He nurtured his prickly pals, as he called them, with fanatical devotion. After Pleasure's disappearance in 1941, his greenhouse was sealed off. When it was reopened in 1989, scientists discovered a huge and happy family of armadillos. The inhabitants were immortalized in neon by the island renovators." That's actually pretty dark. It doesn't really discriminate whether they killed the armadillos when they immortalized them in neon or what that even means. Moving on. XZFR Rock and Roller Dome was a roller skating dance club featuring rock and roll music. This was a multi-story club with a DJ suspended from the ceiling in a booth. The ground floor was the dance floor, and the second floor was the skate rink, which sounds dangerous because it was probably really dangerous. There were also waiters on skates on the ground floor. The plaques describing the history stated, "Island founder and UFO enthusiast Meriwether Pleasure built his experimental X thing here. Pleasure himself designed the super amphibious aircraft that could harness the power of the wind. The X-Thing flew only once, September 1st, 1940, with Pleasure himself at the controls. The test flight is shrouded in mystery, but upon landing, Pleasure began broadcasts to outer space. Beamed from the roof of this building, the International Morse code messages repeated WELCOME. Mannequin's Dance Palace was a 3-level dance club playing techno-trance music and showcasing human mannequins, dressed as things such as disco balls. The plaque stated, "The second building erected on the island, this actually housed Meriwether Pleasure's famous canvas fabrication works. In the 1930s, it was converted to a soundstage for Invincible Pictures, then into a design studio and workshop for various Pleasure projects. Most notable of these was a huge locomotive powered by a combination of steam and magnetic power. A colossal turntable was installed to facilitate the work on this revolutionary product, called Maxwell's Demon, that was intended to revolutionize world transportation. It didn't." Videopolis East. If you remember the second episode of Defunctland, you'll recognize this name. Opening around the same time the Disneyland Dance Club closed, Videopolis East had a variety of TV screens and featured modern music, similar to the California version. It also only allowed guests under 21. According to island legend, built for island founder Meriwether Pleasure's son Henry, the mad genius of Lake Buena Vista, and Henry's life work, the Pleasure Cellular Automation. Henry died thinking his experiments in artificial intelligence had failed, but when the building was reopened in 1987, the automation was alive and thriving. In fact, it directed the refurbishing of its home and designed the sophisticated computer hardware that shows itself to best advantage. Comedy Warehouse was a comedy club, notably featuring a fantastic improv comedy group, but when it originally opened, it showcased a scripted show called Forbidden Disney, which hilariously lampooned Disney's properties.
No jury in the world would convict me.
The club was turned into an improv theater after they realized that there was a high return rate among guests. The legend was that, quote, "This building became a storage facility when Pleasure Island was electrified in 1928. 6 years later, the power station became home to Pleasure Island Thespian Players, founded by and featuring Isabel Pleasure, wife of island founder and drama enthusiast Meriwether Pleasure. The Players specialized in elaborate Central Florida historical pageants, including the seminal Song of the Seminole. After Mrs. Pleasure's death in 1949, the building was closed and the Players disbanded. Since its restoration by the Walt Disney Company, this site is again a warehouse, storing strange notions, again attractions, and ideas slightly ahead of their time. I know this is unorthodox for Defunctland, but this video is going to be split into 2 parts, so I will tell you about the final original Pleasure Island Club as well as the remaining history and eventual closure of the island in part 2. Until then, thank you for watching and don't forget to comment, share, and subscribe.